So, welcome to the making of my game. I've reached the end of the project. Not finished working on the project, but it's all done. We're all packaged up, and it's in the arcade, and people are playing it. So, let's talk about the making of it, I guess. So, this is my workstation. This is where I do all the magic. Obviously, got things like my lightsaber to the left there. That is very, very important. Along with the whiteboard. Yeah, I suppose the whiteboard's important. That's where I put all my ideas, notes, things like that off the top of my head, because there's no point putting things on a bit of paper, because you lose the bit of paper. It's, gotta have two screens. Gotta have access to comics, downtime. And in case a 7-year-old attacks you, there's a Nerf gun at the top there, because that's essential. Got all my nerdy stuff down here, because, gotta have your stuff. You gotta have a nice workstation. It's gotta be enjoyable. It's gotta be a nice place to sit. And it's been a nice place to sit for, well, past year and a bit during the development of this project and going through a pandemic. It's been very fun. So I guess I'll take you through the first build, which was in the Unreal Engine. I love the Unreal Engine. It's a fantastic engine to work with. UE5 just came out right at the end of my project, so it wasn't something that I was able to utilise, but it can certainly be something that I use on the next project. Unreal's ridiculously accessible. You can achieve so much, like the menu system here was super easy to implement. It was so easy to make it look good. The only issue I really had with it was I tried to implement a moving background, which turned out to be it was a bit glitchy. It didn't apply to the background very well. It didn't stay there, so that was a bit of a shame. But aside from that, though, actually creating the menu, as you can see here, it was easy. The only annoying part is that you've got to layer everything, but you just get on with whatever system that you have to use, I guess. I could have hidden each layer, but yeah, it's fine. Getting used to the blueprint system here. Again, it's really accessible. It takes time to learn for sure. These are all the little widgets all the little blueprints and whatnot for the race, which I wasn't able to end up implementing because the bloody checkpoints would not show up, so that was irritating. The ship, as you can see here on this blueprint system, it's quite complicated. It's not, though, really. Those bits that you can see there are just they're just for thrusters. That's just for rotating the ship, which is a fairly simple function. But if you want to rotate something within a properly simulated physical environment, such as space, for example, then you have to have something move correctly, and so it requires you to go in with a bit of detail. These here are for the gun. Again, working with this system, real easy-ish, as long as you know what you're doing, following the right tutorial, I guess. You got the right help from the right people. You can achieve a lot of things with this system, and I really enjoyed using it. So a bit more here in looking at the ship. I designed this by going into my kitchen and taking out a bunch of utensils and putting them all over the table and building a ship out of them. That was actually a lot of fun. Then I added the gun to the front, collision boxes, all that stuff. It's all about layering the assets that you have. As you can see here, just there briefly, is the data tables for all of the bits of food. It's and it gets sound effects for each bit of food, or each category of food, I should say, and things like that. So it's you've got to layer everything. So one, the sound complements the look. The look is complemented by the lighting. The lighting is something that you need to research intensely. So yeah, it's all there, yeah. And I have a wonderful modeler called Trinity to thank for these models. Huge shout out, huge thanks to her for that. Um, the things that she provided were absolutely phenomenal. Although she would play it down and say, "Oh, I don't know. Well, they're just low poly, and there's no real problem." Yeah, they were amazing. All right, that's. I'm just gonna stick. We're gonna stick with that. They were incredible, and I owe her a big, massive thank you. So to ensure that your brain doesn't do this, it is really important to have some downtime. And I personally really enjoy playing a bit of Sea of Thieves on my downtime. It is somewhat similar to my game idea with flying ships and things like that, but yeah, it's definitely a good idea to get as much downtime as you can manage to fit in without procrastinating your project. So the asteroid system that I got was both a blessing and a curse. Managed to speak to the guy who made it, and whereas it looks amazing and I can build some really great looking maps from it, functionally it wasn't doing what I needed it to do, and it seemed like it couldn't. So that's when James stepped in. So James basically rebuilt my entire project within Unity. Um, there was significant upsides of this. There were also a couple of downsides. One of which was that the new asteroid system that James made couldn't handle nearly as many asteroids. Now this wasn't a huge issue. It could still handle up to, I think it was about 7 to 8,000 asteroids, which it does sound like a lot, but when you actually start building like rings and asteroid belts and things like that out of it, no, you don't actually have quite a lot. You don't have a lot left. Um, so yeah, I had to get quite inventive with what I built. And the planets that I wanted to build, again, I just didn't have a lot of time to do this, so I just used existing assets. I think it works fine. It looks fine. The feedback I've gotten from people say, yeah, it's fine. It looks great. Um, they don't have any criticisms until I mention the fact that I wanted to do more custom planets, and they're like, oh yeah, that would be a good idea, but sometimes you just don't have the time or the resources to do everything that you want to do. So you've really got to prioritize. You got to manage that scope. So yeah, everything, we just imported everything, got everything transferred over that could be transferred over. Um, there were even some advantages, as I said before. On this build, managed to get a ship selection screen, 3 different ships, which each have slightly different functionality, which is great. Um, I was able to build more levels because there was a function called the tilt offset, which basically creates some rather nice looking patterns from the asteroid belt. Although, as pretty as they are a little restrictive in terms of what I can actually do to build a map out of them. Um, you really just kind of build it as it is and then leave it, which is good and bad. As a, I guess as a programmer, it's great. As a designer, you're like, I want to do more. I wanna have more creative control or developmental control, if that's even a word, over over how it looks, how it functions, what it does, um, how the player sees it, things like that. So yeah, it yeah, it was a slightly mixed bag, but it was definitely very much in favour of awesome. As you can see here, I managed to create this really nice looking ring pattern, um, and put like 9 rings with the different food. Sorry, 8 rings even, with each of the different food groups within each ring. Um, so it produces this great looking, I want to say like a kaleidoscope basically, but it's not quite like that. I've forgotten what these things are called, where they have the rings swirling around a central point. It's like Hermione's timekeeper thing, I guess, or whatever it was, the time necklace. Yeah, it's a very nice system. I can't complain. So testing. It is super, super important. You've got to keep checking every little functionality of your game along the process, otherwise you will find that the small details that don't work are the thing that eventually break your game and make it uninteresting for people to play. Or at least they will get frustrated to the point where they do not actually want to play it. So it's super important that you keep testing, keep, in my case, shooting everything, checking it all works, checking the points actually register when I shoot a coconut or when I shoot a kiwi or a pear or whatever. Um, get feedback from other people who play the game. It's so important. It's because you think that everybody thinks they're awesome, especially people like designers and you know people like story writers or whatever. Designers in general, like everybody thinks like, oh well, my design, my idea is the best. It's the greatest, but you don't know until you test it on other people. If you ask other people, oh hey, do you like this game idea? And they go no, you go well you're wrong. You can't say that. They're right. They're the consumer. They're the people that you're trying to sell the game to. So if they say it's rubbish, well then it's rubbish. And you've got to try to figure out where you went wrong and fix it. And it's really a case of having a little bit of humility and understanding that you're not going to get everything right the first time. It's certainly it can be a very defeating and somewhat soul-destroying process. Because something that you might think is amazing, you're like, oh, surely this is it. Everybody's gonna love this. This is gonna be the best game ever. I'm gonna be the next Cliff Blazinski or whoever. God, a terrible example off the top of my head. But yeah, I'll be the next person to create the next big thing. The next whatever that guy's name is that I can't stand. That made Godot or whatever it's called, and Fable. Peter Molyneux, yeah, him. Yeah, you can be the next Peter Molyneux, but you're not that guy. So, you've got to just take that feedback, understand that you're not God, and that you're not going to get everything right first time, and try to iterate your ideas. Try to adapt to what it is that people want, what your audience is after. And again, get that downtime in, do whatever it is that makes you happy. So that's it really, there's not a lot much else to say, other than sit down, get your mitts on that keyboard and mouse, and go to town. You've just got to try to learn whatever you can in order to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve, and just do it. It's that's it. There's not a lot much else to say about it. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed my little making of video. No, it's not much. Here it is. This is what it is. And yeah, hope you enjoy the game.